Good morning. October surprise? A new tape of Osama bin Laden unexpectedly surfaces just days before the election. Now the Bush and Kerry campaigns are accusing each other of using the tape and the war on terror to gain political advantage. Today's Saturday, October 30th, 2004.
From NBC News, this is Today, live from Studio 1A in Rockefeller Plaza.
And welcome to Today on a Saturday morning. I'm Lester Holt.
And I'm Campbell Brown. Excerpts of the bin Laden tape aired Friday on the Arab television network Al Jazeera, and then, of course, on every cable channel here all yesterday afternoon, and last night we were watching it.
Right, and wherever he is, it's pretty clear he's following the headlines here in the U.S. On the tape, bin Laden mentions both President Bush and Senator Kerry by name and speaks directly to the American people, saying the U.S. must stop threatening the security of Muslims if it wants to avoid another September 11th-style attack. We'll talk to a former White House terrorism expert about the timing of the tape's release and what bin Laden may have hoped to accomplish with it.
The tape drew a quick and strong reaction from both President Bush and Senator Kerry. Both men vowed the U.S. will not be intimidated and pledged to put an end to terrorism. But the campaigns traded charges, accusing each other of politicizing the issue of national security. We'll see what kind of political impact, if any, this could have on the final days of the race when we talk to the top advisors to both the Bush and Kerry campaigns. But first, let's begin with what we know about the new tape from Osama bin Laden. Here's NBC's Pete Williams.
The latest al-Qaeda attack.
News stories. MSNBC's Amy Robach is at the news desk. Amy, good morning.
Good morning, Campbell. With just 3 days to go before the election, the Osama bin Laden tape is suddenly front and center in the campaign for president. NBC's Nora O'Donnell has more now from the Bush camp.
Campaigning in Ohio, the president used the new Osama bin Laden video to hammer Senator Kerry for suggesting that Mr. Bush let the mastermind of 9/11 escape in Tora Bora.
It's the worst kind of Monday morning quarterbacking. It is especially shameful in the light of a new tape from America's enemy.
The president's political advisors are being very careful not to politicize this, but one senior advisor to the president said, "Does this benefit Kerry? No." And that's because they acknowledge that this tape reinforces what is the closing theme of this campaign, that they believe Mr. Bush is better suited to handle the war on terror.
Let me make this very clear. Americans will not be intimidated or influenced by an enemy of our country.
The president was first informed of the tape early Friday morning as he made his way to New Hampshire, where the campaign had already planned to make their final pitch. Later, things turned upbeat with the star power of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I'm here to pump you up to re-elect President George W. Bush.
The so-called governor praised the president's bold leadership.
If you flex your muscles November 2nd, I guarantee you President Bush will be back.
The campaign is hoping to leave an image of strength in the minds of voters as they head to the polls. Nora O'Donnell, NBC News, Columbus, Ohio.
And the bin Laden tape also caused a quick change in John Kerry's campaign speeches. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell is traveling with the Kerry campaign in Appleton, Wisconsin. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Amy. Everyone trying to measure the political impact of this new tape. Senior Kerry officials say the senator will not say anything more publicly about the tape, but because of what he said in an interview with a local affiliate, a station in Milwaukee, referring to the tape and also being critical of the president, and then the comments you just heard from the president who referred to the tape and criticized Kerry at a campaign rally. Both campaigns are now making charges and countercharges that each side is trying to gain a political edge.
Moments after Kerry was briefed by telephone about the bin Laden tape, he made this statement and took no questions.
Thank you. Let me just make it clear, crystal clear. As Americans, we are absolutely united in our determination to hunt down and destroy Osama bin Laden and the terrorists. They are barbarians. And I will stop at absolutely nothing to hunt down, capture, or kill the terrorists wherever they are, whatever it takes, period.
The development forces Kerry to recalibrate his message in the final push at an evening rally in Miami with Bruce Springsteen.
I want to introduce my fellow Democratic guitar player and the next president of the United States, John Kerry.
Kerry did not make one of his most frequent charges against the president, that Mr. Bush took his eye off Osama bin Laden. But Kerry did not hold back.
We will make America safer than George Bush has.
2 votes Kerry can count. John and Elizabeth Edwards cast their ballots early back home in North Carolina.
Senior aides say Senator Kerry will still talk about the war on terror, still talk about what he would do in Iraq, trying to stay on his message to drive that home in the remaining days. Senior aides say at this point they think they have had the right tone, but the warfare between the 2 campaigns over this is sure to go on. Amy?
Kelly O'Donnell traveling with the Kerry campaign. Kelly, thank you. Well, shortly after casting his ballot, a small fire forced Senator John Edwards' plane to return to the Raleigh airport. Fire officials say a battery shorted out and ignited a seat cushion. After fire crews on the ground checked it out, the plane continued on to Ohio. The Japanese government says a body found in Iraq is probably not hostage Soche Kota. Officials say Kota's dental records don't match. The body was found a day after a deadline set by militants threatening to behead Kota unless Japan withdraws troops from Iraq. Doctors in Paris say it could be days before they can diagnose Yasser Arafat. The ailing Palestinian leader was flown to a French hospital yesterday after Israel said he would be able to return following treatment. That's the latest news. Now back over to Lester, Campbell, and Sean.
Thanks, Amy. And we want to get a first look at your weekend forecast. Sean McLaughlin is here. How are you?
Good morning, both of you. It's All Hallows Eve, right? Let's see what's going on nationwide. We've got a wet and windy day up in through the Great Lakes. Take a look at that big comma. You see that right in the center part of your screen? That trailing cold front bringing some showers from the Great Lakes all the way down through portions of Texas. Now, basically, we've got wind damage possible throughout northern Ohio, west central New York State. Heavy winds right along that low pressure center. And there's that rain stretching all the way down through Texas, bringing the Breeders' Cup later on today for NBC. A 30% chance of rain. Speaking of big events, showers possible in Boston with areas of fog for the big Red Sox parade. Well, that's a quick look at the national weather scene. Time now for your local forecast. Halloween's forecast as well as the Election Day forecast coming up in the next half hour. Lester?
All right, Sean, thanks very much. That new tape of Osama bin Laden may affect the political debate over the war on terror in the final 72 hours of the presidential campaign. Mary Madeline is a senior advisor to the Bush-Cheney campaign. Mary, good morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you again, Lester.
In the Osama bin Laden tape, among the things he says, and it's clear that he's been reading the headlines and following the campaign, he says, listen, Campbell.
Lester, thanks. Joe Lockhart is a senior advisor for the Kerry campaign. Joe, good morning to you.
Good morning, Campbell.
Let me ask you the same question. Do you believe this tape, the release of the tape, was designed to influence the outcome of the election?
Oh, I'm certain that that's what Osama bin Laden had in mind, but I think the American...
Joe Lockhart, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Thanks, Campbell.
And now back to Lester.
And Campbell joining me here on Democracy Plaza now to analyze the state of the race is John Harwood, political editor of the Wall Street Journal. John, good morning to you.
Hey, Lester.
Osama bin Laden, is that the October surprise that many thought we might see before November 2nd?
It's certainly not the October surprise anybody counted on. Both campaigns had been bracing for potential acts of violence, or Democrats had been concerned the president might have a situation where the U.S. forces captured Osama bin Laden. This is much different than anybody expected. Not sure what effect it's going to have on a race. Anybody who has bet on numbers to move dramatically in this race has lost their money. So
Changes the conversation, though. The conversation up until yesterday was what happened to explosives in Iraq. There was also a Halliburton story out there yesterday. Does this help one campaign, hurt one campaign more than the other?
I think George Bush was happy to have the conversation changed from missing explosives, although that story didn't appear to be moving many poll numbers either. And John Kerry, on the other hand, can say, look, 3 years later, he's still out there. And the president hasn't been talking about Osama bin Laden too much in this campaign.
All right, let's talk about, we're in front of the electoral map as we see it right now, based on the polls. But of course, many of these gray states, are there really more gray states that we're looking here? Are things changing in terms of strategy? Let's go by the big three, first of all. Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania is a state where John Kerry has the upper hand. George Bush is not out of it, but if you're planning your strategy to get to 270 electoral votes, this is not at the top of the Bush campaign's list.
There's been some hint this week that the Bush folks have looked at Ohio with a bit more pessimistically and maybe reassessing. What do you know about Ohio?
That is exactly right. They're very concerned about Ohio. John Kerry may have a slight upper hand there. Either campaign could win that state, but that's one that Democrats have very high hopes for.
All right, Florida. We all know about the pressure on Florida. What's the story in Florida?
That is a pure toss-up, Lester. This is a state where John Kerry had the advantage last week. Things moved back a little bit to George W. Bush. either candidate can win that race, and we could have a long night.
All right, let's connect the dots now. You talked about Ohio. How does that affect what the candidates are doing in the upper Midwest right now?
Well, it's very interesting. Ohio could place a lot of pressure on the president in Wisconsin. Both campaigns expect that George W. Bush has a good chance of winning Iowa, where he has had a lead throughout the fall, and Democrats have had difficulty erasing that lead. If John Kerry can take away New Hampshire, take away Ohio from that red state column, George W. Bush needs to hold Florida, and he needs to win Wisconsin.
In just a few quick seconds, Vice President Cheney going to Hawaii. Could Hawaii decide this thing?
It could. Republicans see some chance, but that's an indication of the urgency the Bush campaign feels to try to find some electoral votes somewhere else if Ohio goes the other way, if Florida goes the other way, or Wisconsin.
John Harwood. John, thanks very much.
You bet.
And we'll be right back. But first, this is Today on NBC.
The candidate and the entire NBC 30 news team, plus Tom Brokaw and the power of NBC News. This election night, watch your vote count on NBC 30 and NBC30.com for up-to-the-minute results. Connecticut's most complete coverage of Decision 2004, right here on NBC 30.
Still to come on Today, the secrets of escape artist Harry Houdini on the auction block. We'll talk to the owner of the world's largest Houdini collection to find out why he's selling some of Houdini's greatest tricks to the highest bidder.
And we'll take a trip to Brooklyn without crossing the river. We'll go behind the scenes. Brooklyn the Musical. We'll hear from the cast in our studio this morning. We're back after these messages.
The Change Your Clock, Change Your Battery program is now in its 17th year.
Yes, Florida all have a chance of rain, heavy rains in through the central Appalachians, and windy and cool down in the southern plains. Same thing in the northern plains with some showers up in the Pacific Northwest and the northern Rockies. All right, that's a quick look at the national weather scene. Time now for your local forecast. All right, Lester, we'll toss it back to you inside.
Scene, thanks. This fall, one of Hollywood's biggest dramas isn't playing at your local movie theater, but rather a small courtroom in Delaware. It's the case of the Stockholm
severance package worth $140 million.
Decision 2004, the new bin Laden videotape. The nation's threat level will stay where it is, but police have